it's Terreana. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Here you will find makeup, hair, all things beauty and lifestyle content. If that sounds good to you, hang out and subscribe. And to my people who already subscribed, hey, it's so good to see you back. In today's video, I'm going to continue on with the beginner's makeup series. If you haven't watched any of the videos from the makeup series, I'll link them down below so you can catch up. As part of this series, today's video is all about makeup brushes. We're going to discuss all my top makeup brushes, shapes, sizes, what they're used for. We're going to talk about it all. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna go ahead and discuss the makeup brushes in the order of how I use them for my face and my eyes. Throughout the video, I'm gonna give you a ton of information about what type of brushes I use, why I use these type of brushes. That way it'll give you an idea of what brushes to choose. I just wanna give you the information. It doesn't really matter the brand as long as the brush is right for you. If you're interested in any of these brushes that I use, I'll have brushes linked in my Amazon store. While on my Amazon storefront, each brush that I put inside of my store, I'll have a description of what I use it for to kind of make it simple. So even if you're not interested in buying, but you just kind of want to know what brush goes where, it'll be a very helpful place for you to go and look up that information. My Amazon store is an affiliate store, so I do make a small commission off of qualified purchases. No pressure to buy, but if you do, it kind of helps keep the lights on here. First set of complexion brushes that I want to go over are flat synthetic brushes. I have 3 here. This brush is by Terreana, comes in a set. This brush is by Tarte. It's very large and dense, but as you can see, it's really flat. This brush is by e.l.f. It's also very flat, but it is a little less dense than the others. All these brushes are really great to apply liquid foundation. I normally start out with my foundation and just kind of apply it and buff it in. Synthetic brushes are really great because they don't soak up all the products. After I buff in the foundation, I like to use a beauty blender sponge. You don't have to use a beauty blender sponge. You can also use any type of soft sponge. First, wet the sponge and wring out all the water. You want it nice and damp. Then you take the sponge and you kind of just pounce it on your skin so that your makeup blends out so flawlessly. This is really great for concealer as well. Once you apply your concealer, you just take your beauty sponge or beauty blender and you just press underneath the eye area to really blend it out. So I really like the beauty blender. Real Techniques also makes really great sponges. There's a sponge that looks like this and it has like this silicone-y situation on there that's really nice. And then they also have a sponge that's kind of velvety on the outside. With the velvet texture on the outside, it really lays powder down so nicely. All the sponges, you can use it with liquid product as well as powder. Staying with complexion products, let's move on to contour, bronzer, and sculpting. I have these brushes right here. The first brush is by Bedelian Tools. It's the 990 brush. I've had it for a while, so it's a tad bit stained, but it's a really nice synthetic brush. It's angled. It's not super dense, so it's really good for buffing in bronzer. It's big enough so that you don't get an intense amount of pigment in areas. When you apply bronzer, you want it to look very natural and you want your skin to look sun-kissed. This brush will do that for you. Also, if you turn this brush to the side, it's really great for contouring. The next brush is by Terreana. This brush right here, it's a bit smaller and a lot fluffier. These brushes are really soft. You can really get in areas and buff just like this brush, but this brush right here gives you a lot more control. This brush by Stilazzi, this is the angle brush L312. This is kind of the same idea. Size-wise, it's in between those two, but it works just the same. Probably the most dense out of all the brushes. So this brush will give you a lot more pigment concentrated in one area. The next set of brushes are by Stilazzi. These 2 brushes I use for blush. This is the blush L311. It looks like this. Now this brush right here is not very dense. It's really nice and soft, and it just applies so perfectly on the cheek. This one gives you more control and it gives you a lot more concentrated pigment in one area, while this one gives you a little less control, but it gives you more of a wash of color. It depends on kind of what look you're going for. Either one of these brushes work really great. The next set of brushes are highlight brushes or strobe brushes. These are the two brushes here. This brush right here is by Real Techniques. Real Techniques makes really great brushes. The only thing about them is that the handles are really thick. And this is a strobe brush. This is by Stilazzi. This is the L307. And they do exactly the same thing. I just really want to give you guys different options. Both of these brushes are tapered towards the top, so they both give really nice precision when you are applying highlight. These are not super dense, but they're dense enough so that it applies just enough without it being too blinding. If you want it super blinding, you could just go in there and really add more of that highlighter, but you really don't need much with a brush like this. Now let's move into eye brushes. The first brush is this tiny little brush right here. This is the Morphe M153 brush. It is a very tiny angle brush. It is great for eyebrows. It's great for wing liner. It's synthetic, so it doesn't soak up a lot of product. It also has a spoolie on the end, so it really helps to get your eyebrows all the way in order. I really love this brush. I've been using this brush for quite a while, and I think this is probably my favorite angle brush, and that says a lot because I go through a lot of these, especially with clients. Before this brush, it was a struggle finding that perfect angle brush that kind of keeps its shape, but it's also flexible enough so that I can get a nice precise line.
Listen to me, like I do this all the time.
The struggle, but this one, I love it. Now let's go into packing brushes. These two brushes are by Stilazzi. As you can see, they're different shapes. This one right here is the Color Blend L211. And this one right here is the Flat Dome Shader L210. Now, the difference between these two shapes is that this one right here is a bit longer and this one is shorter, but they're both relatively flat. Depends on your eye shape which would work a little bit better for you. If you have a little bit more lid space, then I would go with a longer brush like this. If you have less lid space or if you have more mature eyes, I would go with a brush like this. Brushes like this are great for laying down color and then blending out the edges with a fluffier blending brush. Now let's go into fluffy blending brushes. I have these three fluffy blending brushes. The first brush is by Terreana. The second brush is by Stilazzi. This is the large pointed crease brush. This is the L2-118. And the last one is by Morphe. This is the M506 brush. The Terreana brush is really fluffy and the shape is not too long and not too short.
That's what she said.
So this will work with any eye shape. This is really great for blending shadow in the crease, all over the lid. The next brush is the large pointed crease by Stilazzi. This one is a little bit smaller and tapered. This brush works really great for blending out a cut crease, the cornea of the eye, underneath the lash line. This is perfect for any eye shape and I just love this brush. A brush that's similar is the Morphe 506 brush, the M506. Now this is a little bit tinier, but it does pretty much the same thing. So if you have not a lot of lid space, this brush will work perfect. Now these brushes, I would suggest all three, honestly. You want to have a nice fluffy blending brush, something pointed, and something a little bit tiny. That way you have all your bases covered for a nice eye look. Now we're going to go over some even tinier blending brushes. These two brushes right here. The first brush is a smudger brush. This is by Morphe. This is the M508. And the next one is by Morphe as well. This is the E18. This brush is perfect for smoking underneath the lash line. It's so tiny that it gets right underneath that waterline. The Morphe E18 brush is a little bit bigger, so it really helps once you place that color with the smudger brush. Using something like this really helps to blend out the color to make it really nice and soft. Both of these brushes are very helpful and they do different things. So for a complete eye look, I would suggest both of them. One thing that I see a lot of beginners doing is forgetting underneath the lash line. For a complete eyeshadow look, really paying attention to the shadow underneath the lash line brings a look together. If you're trying to go for different type of creative looks, then leaving the lash line out can definitely give you a different feel. But if you include your lower lash line for most of your looks, it really pulls things together. The last set of brushes are synthetic brushes. Now these ones, I just used them, so they're not the cleanest. The first brush is the Morphe M410. It's a flat synthetic brush, and this one is square. This one is by Salazzi. This is a very similar brush. This is the flat liner L206. It does the exact same thing as the brush before it. And lastly, this is a large concealer brush, also by Salazzi. This is the L301. This one is different from the other two because this one is rounded at the top. Flat synthetic brushes, I love to use these for cleaning up underneath the brows, for cut creases, for also applying concealer to my eyes if I want to use that to prep them. I use this type of brush. This one is also similar to a smudger brush to where you can really get underneath the lash line and apply a shadow. These are really great for that as well. A flat synthetic brush that's rounded at the top is really great for applying shadow that's like a metallic or a shimmer. You just want to dip the brush into the shadow and spray it, and it helps to apply the pigment so much more intense. I love brushes like this. This also really helps to cut out a cut crease. So what a cut crease is when you take a shadow or concealer and you literally cut your crease. So you're taking the brush and you are applying that pigment right across the lid. I'll probably have a tutorial on how to do a cut crease in this series as well. Those are individual brushes. I really hope that that helped to kind of give you an idea of what type of brushes are out there and what those brushes do. And if you're looking to add just a few to your set that you already have, hopefully that's a really good option. But if you're just new, you don't have brushes, and you just want a set, I have some options for you. The first option is by Fayon. This brush set right here is really wonderful. Now this brush set is kind of combines two Fayon brush sets. I have a video on the two separate Fayon brush sets that I purchased, so it kind of really breaks down all the brushes that are included. But I just kind of want to show you what it kind of looks like. This is really great because it has everything you will possibly need for a full face, and it's under $20. My other recommendation for a set is the Morphe James Charles eye brush set. This has everything you would ever need for a complete eye look, and it comes in a very nice case. Well, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video was very helpful. If you are interested in any of these brushes, don't forget to check out my Amazon store. If you have any questions, leave them down below or hit me up on my other social. It's Terreana. Check out my website, itsterreana.com. I am working to get new content up. It's been a little rough, but I will see you there. Bye.